We've learned a lot of disturbing things in recent years about government intrusion into our lives. But one of, if not the most disturbing finding, came out only recently in a brief prepared by the Justice Department. It's a novel theory that, if accepted, would mean you will literally soon own nothing. And wasn't that what the World Economic Forum told us would happen? We were told just a couple of years ago that by 2030 we'd own nothing and somehow be happy about it. Now, they mean it. They put it on their Facebook page. You don't recall this video? Let's roll a clip from when we first shared it in episode 168.
8 predictions for the world in 2030. You'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. Whatever you want you'll rent and it'll be delivered by drone. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. A handful of countries will dominate. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs, we'll print new ones instead. You'll eat much less meat. An occasional treat not a staple for the good of the environment and our health. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. We will have to do a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history. You could be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. The start of the journey to find alien life? Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten.
Now, how's that all going to play out? First, housing becomes unaffordable? Check. Then gasoline-powered automobiles are banned? Check. Then your stocks and bonds are subject to the Great Taking, which we discussed a year ago in episode 288? Check. Makes you want to cash in everything and just hold money, renting what you need. That's their goal, along with making you eat bugs and fake organs implanted into your body and all those other wonderful things, the refugees and all that. But the key part is it starts with you'll own nothing. And sadly, the money that you may not have may not even be yours. And I'm not talking about central bank digital currency here. Join me in the Economic War Room, where we'll discuss the latest move to control you. The question, who owns your money? If I were to tell you that the money you think you have in your bank isn't yours, I'd be technically correct right now. When you open an account, for the most part, the bank takes the money and provides a promise to return it to you, sometimes with interest. But technically, it becomes their asset and also their liability. They owe you. If it's a demand deposit, you can write a check or use an ATM card or make a withdrawal to get your money out. And this is only a concern if the bank goes out of business or is closed by regulators. Even then, you likely have FDIC deposit insurance that covers up to $250,000. That provides stability and peace of mind. But it doesn't change the fact that under the law, in the terms that you agreed to, the money in your account isn't officially owned by you. I know, that sounds strange, but it's true. Let me read the explanation from SGR Law. It's a New York law firm that they published on their website. They say, take a look at the balance in your checking or savings accounts. How much of that money actually belongs to you? You may be surprised to learn that in New York, and this is true in other states, the funds in a general bank account do not technically belong to the depositor. At the moment of deposit, the funds become the property of the depository bank. Thus, as a depositor, you're in essence a creditor of the bank. Once the bank accepts your deposit, it agrees to refund the same amount or any part thereof on demand. What that means is the bank can take your money and they can loan out your deposit, essentially giving you an IOU, a promise to return your money plus interest. Then, as long as the bank remains solvent, you can access that money anytime you want or need. The systems work pretty well in America, with an occasional hiccup that the FDIC helps resolve, as they did when Silicon Valley Bank failed a couple of years back. But this is not why I'm saying that what you think is your money may not be. And no, I'm not getting ultra spiritual here. As a Christian, I know everything belongs to God, and I'm merely a steward serving Him. That's true. But that's also not what I'm referencing here. What I am saying is that in a recent court filing, the Justice Department of the United States of America made an extraordinary claim that the money in your wallet doesn't even belong to you. The implications of this are frightening. You work hard all your life and save some money, but it doesn't belong to you? In this episode, we're going to unpack what that all means, your rights as an American, and a simple solution that can guarantee your money stays yours. To understand the problem, we'll have to look at exactly what the Justice Department said. This was in response to a court case filed last December. The title was United States District Court, CS Lawn and Landscape versus the U.S. Department of Labor. By way of background, a landscaper was investigated by the Department of Labor. They then ran a trial inside the agency and fined him $55,000 with the force of law. Now, I have no idea whether or not he should have paid that fine, but I do agree with the Institute for Justice that the way the fine was imposed was problematic. Let me read what they said in their landscaper's defense. When the Department of Labor decided to fine Chuck Sane tens of thousands of dollars, Chuck did not get to make his case to a jury of his peers or even a real federal judge. Instead, the agency's own employees served as a prosecutor, judge, and jury. Chuck's a small business owner. For the last 40 years, he's run CS Lawn and Landscaping near Annapolis, Maryland. His administrative odyssey began in 2015 when the Department of Labor investigators first showed up at his business, and it ended in 2022 when DOL's in-house agency judge imposed $55,000 in liability. In all, Chuck spent 7 years fighting inside the agency. Worse, when DOL finally imposed that liability, it based the vast bulk of that on the fact that CS Lawn rented an apartment to some of its workers that was located in an area not zoned residential. In other words, DOL dragged Chuck and his company through years of expensive agency proceedings because of an alleged violation of a zoning ordinance. Now Chuck is joining with the Institute for Justice to demand his day in court. Under Article 3 of the Constitution, Chuck should have been entitled to have his defense in a real federal court with a real federal judge. And under the 7th Amendment, he should have been entitled to make his defense before a jury of his peers. The administrative proceedings in this case trampled on both rights. Now that's bad. We can't even imagine how we could have gotten to this outrageous point where the government says they can take your private money at will. They say that even your money is not your property. It all belongs to the government and they can take it at any time. Stay tuned after this break to learn their incredible reasoning. You cannot afford to miss this. Learn why the government says your money is not even yours. We'll be right back. In uncertain times, finding stability in the economy can feel challenging. But what if you could navigate economic volatility while honoring your biblical values? At Timothy Plan, they believe this balance is possible. Timothy Plan filters its volatility-weighted ETFs and family of mutual funds through a biblical pro-life and pro-family lens, so you can see competitive returns and moral responsibility, helping you to weather the economic storms. With Timothy Plan, align your investments with your values while adapting to our ever-changing culture. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has been recognized leader in biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, your bridge between faith, finances, and the future. Visit timothyplan.com or call 1-800-TIM-PLAN or 1-800-846-7526. Investing includes risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com.
Somewhere a perversion has taken place. Our natural unalienable rights are now considered to be a dispensation of government, and freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp as it is at this moment.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It has to be fought for and defended by each generation.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
In this most critical time in our nation's history, now more than ever, Americans need to align with companies that support our constitutional rights and God-given freedoms. Patriot Mobile supports your values and provides exceptional 100% US-based customer service. Join the movement today. Go to patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT.
Open your wallet. Pull out a $20 bill. If you have one. Is this your hard-earned money? Not according to a recent court filing as reported in Reason magazine at the end of January. Title of the article, "The government says money isn't property, so it can take yours." In a jaw-dropping argument, the Department of Justice claims seizing $50,000 from a small business doesn't violate private property rights because money isn't property. The Department of Justice argued that confiscating $50,000 from a small business did not infringe on the business's right to private property because money is not property. Money is not necessarily property for constitutional purposes, the government's brief declared, putting the very idea of property in scare quotes. The DOJ gave three rationales for the argument, all packed into a doorstopper of a footnote. 1, the government creates money, so you can't own it. 2, the government can tax your money, so you don't own it. And 3, the Constitution allows the government to spend money for the general welfare. Now, when I first saw that in Reason magazine, I couldn't believe it. It sounded like a bad law school student's lame attempt to defend the indefensible. But in reality, it's what the Justice Department used as reasoning in the Landscaper case. In fact, this whole idea that money is not property is hidden in a footnote as if it were the evidence rather than the argument. Take a look at page 9, sort of an obscure location, but stated plain as day. Let me read it to you. But in any event, money is not necessarily property for constitutional purposes. Money is created by the federal government, and they point to U.S. Constitution, Article 1, and they say whatever power there is over the currency is vested in Congress. So money is not property, it's currency because Congress created it. They can do whatever they want. Here's their logic. 1, Congress creates money. 2, because they created it, they have control over its use. And 3, it can't be property because the Constitution already grants the right to Congress of disposing of property. So Congress can spend money. It's different, it's redundant if money is actually property. Yes, the reasoning is circular. Yes, it's flawed. And yes, in my opinion, it's stupid. But it gets worse. As a side note, though, please understand that the Constitution doesn't actually allow the government to create money. Instead, the Congress has the power to coin money. It's a slight word change, but it has a huge meaning difference. Coining is not creating. It is using some form of metal and pressing it into a form that demonstrates its weight and value. Of course, our monetary system has moved from gold and silver as money to what's now known as fiat currency, either as paper money or ones and zeros on a bank's computer. I guess in this sense, the government does create money, as explained by the current Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and his colleagues in a 60-minute interview. Let's run that Powell clip.
You simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did.
So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
You've been printing money.
Well, effectively.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally, so we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally.
Flooding the system with money.
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that.
There is no end to our ability to do that.
Given that, I guess the government's saying, we made it, we own it, and we only let you use it when it suits our purpose. That's quite the argument. But again, that was not the intention at the beginning. In fact, I have a 100-year-old Federal Reserve note, what we today would call a $20 bill. It was not money, but represented money that was gold and silver. You know that simply by reading what it says on its face. On the right side, under the seal, are printed the words, redeemable and lawful money of the United States at United States Treasury or Bank of Issue. It even says, we'll pay to the bearer on demand $20. In other words, when the Fed created in 1929 was not money, but could be redeemed for money. Did the Treasury create money? No, they coined it. And here is a $20 gold coin from the same era. God created the gold, the Treasury coined the money. Thus, I'm ready to call the Justice Department's first point as busted. Real money is property, and the government does not actually create it. Even if they did, is that an excuse to just take what they want? No. Now, the second argument was that the Justice Department makes is that the government has the authority to levy taxes. And when they do, they take money. This is also spelled out in the footnote on page 9 of the brief that says, and the federal government is likewise empowered to take money through, for example, taxes. And they give the constitutional reason. But not every tax is a deprivation of property under the Due Process Clause or a taking of property under the Takings Clause. So they're basically saying, because we can tax it, then it must not be property, because we can't take. Now that's logic. That's flawed. Yes, the government can tax, and the courts agree that it is considered a taking of private, that it's not considered taking of private property. But that is not the same as saying that money is not property. The more reasonable way to view it is that taxation is not the same as taking. For example, the government claims we have a voluntary income tax system. This sadly does not mean it's optional. It's that you get to present your taxes rather than having them taken from you. Now, I know it feels like they're taken, but there's a legal distinction. And yes, if you don't pay your taxes voluntarily, the government will get a court order and take your money. But that's called due process, something the Justice Department was arguing is unnecessary because money is not property, because it can be taken by taxation. And again, reasoning circular, ignoring that in other legalese theory, taxation is not considered taking. Finally, in the Twilight Zone brief, the Justice Department argues that because Congress can spend money, it must not be property. Huh? Let's read it. Thinking of money as property would also make little sense in light of the spending and property clauses. Since the early days of the Republic, Congress's ability to spend money was thought to flow from its power to provide for the general welfare. That's why James Madison and Alexander Hamilton vigorously debated that clause and its implications for congressional spending. And they go on to say, but there was no need for debates if the money were considered property. Now, that's just stupid. Congress can spend money under its plenary power to dispose of it? That's ridiculous. Let's look at how absurd that is. What if a dad gave his son the opportunity to hold a garage sale and the authority to sell a pile of stuff and spend the money? Would that mean the son also has the right to his dad's wallet and could spend that money too? Of course not. And before you dismiss this analogy, notice the authority rests in the dad, not the son. And it is we the people who granted authority to the Congress and the government, not the other way around. And if we the people want to grant the power to dispose property, it doesn't mean they have the right to take our money and spend it. Only a D.C. government lawyer would try to pull that off as an excuse to take money from any one of us, we the people, without due process. This, of course, is just one case, and maybe the landscaper should pay the fine, but their reasoning is scary stuff. We'll cover this and all the implications and a solution when we come right back after the break. Here's a $10 bill. It's got the picture of Alexander Hamilton on the front of it. You know, it's kind of sad. When I was 10 years old, everything that I could buy for $1 now costs about $10. That's the cost of inflation. It's just paper. It's not backed by anything. You can't exchange it for gold and silver. You used to, but you can't do that anymore. And that's unfortunate. You know, pirates wouldn't accept this. Pirates, they wanted gold and silver. Patriots, the founders of this nation, also wanted gold and silver coin. In fact, they put a provision in the Constitution, 17 words, that said states could only make gold and silver coins tender within the states. That's why I wrote this new book, Pirate Money, Discovering the Founders' Hidden Plan for Economic Justice and Defeating the Great Reset. It will explain exactly the history of money and exactly why gold and silver coins can be made modern with new technology and a useful monetary system. PirateMoneyBook.com.
I'm Kevin Sorbo. When you spend money, you consider who you're buying from and the causes they support. If you don't, then you're likely supporting companies that are trying to destroy our country and take away our freedoms. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They're a cell phone company and a good one. They offer nationwide coverage on the best 4G and 5G networks along with 100% US-based customer support. But here's the deal. Patriot Mobile's mission has nothing to do with cell phones. They carry out their mission by giving back millions of dollars every year to Christian conservative causes that are actively engaged in the fight to save America. Voting is no longer enough to beat the woke. We have to band together, support like-minded companies, and vote with our dollars. That's how we win. Stop supporting companies that want to destroy America and join Patriot Mobile today by visiting patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT.
All right, before the break, we were talking about how the government was planning to take your money, and that's where they were headed with this whole notion of central bank digital currency. Fortunately, that's off the table as long as Trump is in the White House. But the minions of government have not given up on the notion of controlling you through your money. That's why they brought this whole argument up about how the money in your wallet's not really yours. And when we opened the show, we shared a clip from the World Economic Forum where you were promised that by 2030 you'd own nothing and be happy. We then explained how our own government is arguing that the money that you have in your pocket isn't yours. What's worse is the law in your state may even declare that the stocks and bonds that you have in your broker account aren't really yours legally either. Now, we covered that with David Webb in episode 288. And by the way, thanks to David's efforts and the support of you, our audience, there's real action underway to make that issue right. Go back and rewatch episode 288 and study our battle plan. Now, another risk that we're facing that I just mentioned was a central bank digital currency. And fortunately, we've beaten that back with the Trump administration. The creators of CBDC have said up front that it's not your money if you have central bank digital money, that you'd only have a use license. The problem here is that they could take it at will or limit how you use it, and with CBDC, central bank digital currency, they could track you with it. We've shown a great clip of the head of the Bank for International Settlements who admits that CBDC would like to give the government absolute control of money and the technology to enforce it, and that's different from a dollar bill. Let's listen.
All our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important.
All right, look, he's just basically saying the central bank digital currency gives them the ability to enforce control over your money. But he said it's very different from a bill. I don't know what direction that's ultimately going to go. Good news, President Trump signed an executive order stopping central bank digital currency as long as he's president, unless Congress can pass it and override his veto. So we have a reprieve. The courts have not yet confirmed the Justice Department's novel theory, screwy notion, ridiculous idea that money, even printed money, is not your property, and I'm hopeful that they will not. And perhaps the best news is that we're in process of getting states to make money that's real money, not created, but money that's real property under the Constitution, gold and silver. This has been a part of my life's work, something I've thought about since I was a 10-year-old boy. People would ask me, do you want to be president, Kevin? I said, no. I'd rather be the Federal Reserve Chairman so I could return our money to constitutional standards so they couldn't take it away from us. Constitutional currency is gold and silver. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, look it up. It says no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin in tender and payment of debts. And that's property. We're not eliminating the U.S. dollar, just offering a valid choice. And we're working in the states to make it happen. Your state could let you choose to hold your money in the form of gold or silver or paper, and you could spend it as you'd like. That's the subject of my last book, Pirate Money. It is the founder's hidden plan for economic justice and defeating the Great Reset. And we've just produced a new explainer video to show how it would work. All right, this is a rough cut. You're the first people to see it, and it's likely going to be edited and changed and so forth before we finally release it. But I want to give you a sneak peek. How would a gold and silver economy operate?
100 years ago, your great-grandfather decided not to buy a new car, but instead left you that $400 as an inheritance. He had a decision to make. He could have left you $20,000, $20 bills, or he could leave 20 $20 gold coins. Back then, they were worth exactly the same. Which one would you hope to get? Today, those gold coins would be worth over $50,000, enough to buy a new car, while the paper bills would still be just $400, barely enough for a set of tires. A gold coin back then could buy a nice man's suit. Today, it still can. Paper money has not kept up. So, how do we fix this? We can return to a gold and silver-backed system using modern technology. States already have the right to do this. It is found in Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, allows states to use gold and silver as legal tender. Texas, for example, already has a bullion depository, and with legislation, it could make gold and silver transactional legal tender, aka currency. Other states can too. Here's how it could work. 1. Citizens open accounts at state-authorized depositories and convert dollars into gold or silver. 2. The metal is stored securely, and electronic systems, like existing debit card technology, enables fast, seamless, and secure transactions. 3. Buyers and sellers can trade goods and services using gold and silver, just like using dollars. This system is secure, familiar, and provides everyone, not just the wealthy, a hedge against inflation. It allows people to save, spend, and protect their money's value in real time. Gold and silver as functional money create honest economic justice, offering another way to pay while safeguarding against inflation. For more information on how to support this in your state, visit transactionalgold.com. Let's work together to restore financial stability and fairness for everyone.
You think people want this? Absolutely they do. I've been going across the country. There was a ballot proposition called Proposition 7 in Texas, and 77% of people voted in favor. That's 1.6 million Texans. And we have legislation being entered in 24 states at least across the country. This is one of our biggest projects we've ever done from the Economic War Room, and we need your help to do it. Go to transactionalgold.com. Learn what Florida is doing with the support of Jimmy Petronas, their treasurer. Learn what the Utah major study confirmed, that this is legal, it's constitutional, it's workable, it's doable, and they've got legislation being passed. Learn why central banks are buying gold everywhere that they can, and you can get on your own personal gold and silver standard. This is what we ought to do. Imagine having an entire gold and silver standard, not replacing the dollar, but alongside the dollar, where you can protect your currency that cannot be taken away by the federal government. It's really not that complicated. It is literally just another way to pay. The best part of it, it will be your money. We'll summarize all this in our free economic battle plan at economicwarroom.com. Remember, what we see as a marketplace, our enemies view as a battle space. This is Kevin Freeman from the Economic War Room.